Jonah Crow had a quiet house, rain on the window pane. Mary Ann was in the ground, and he still called her name. Old tubes glowed on the workbench, coffee cold beside his hand, fixing radios for strangers in a town the time forgot. Then the thunder cracked the hillside and the lights all flickered low. Through the hiss came something calling from a place no man should go. Jonah, Jonah, follow that red light down through the pines in the dead of night. Jonah, Jonah, tune that dive. There has been calling for a little while. Don't let the dead air in. Don't let the dark get through. Jonah, Jonah, keep it on. The holler's got a hold on.
Good evening, friends. You're tuned in to WHAINT Radio, broadcasting from deep and dark in the Midnight Holler. I'm Jonah, your host for the evening. I figure it's time I give you some backstory. The longer I stay in this godforsaken place, the more rules I learn. For instance, the moment I stop broadcasting these stories, the power begins to shut off at the station. First, it's the West Wing, then the lobby. I haven't gotten past those rooms because when too many lights go out, the creatures start coming out the tree line. Sometimes it's a ghoul, sometimes it's something else, but they always seem hungry, very hungry. The moment I start broadcasting again and that on-air light turns red, the power gets another couple of hours and those things are kept at a distance. Sometimes I hear the voice of my beloved calling for me. One day I'll tell you about her. Maybe I'll even tell you how I found this place and the last time I tried to escape. Speaking of this place, this station is not just a building. It's perhaps a doorway, or a trap, or a wound. Any of those would be accurate. It exists somewhere outside normal time, fixed permanently to 1976. The calendars never change. The clocks move but don't make a difference because it's always dark outside. The same commercials play, the same songs return. The tape machines record over themselves and then somehow hold everything forever. There's a box of old tapes in the basement. Been down there once, but met something else down there too. I locked the door and haven't been back since. But that's another story for another night. Because tonight we are covering part 2 of a Firewatch story called The Smoke That Stays, Joel's story. I first discovered it on a reel-to-reel cart. It seemed to appear overnight and was still warm. I'm going to start the reel now, so get comfy and don't adjust those dials, friends. I'll see you again on the other side of the static.
The Smoke That Stays, Part 2. Last week, we left Joel Ardis, 11-year Forest Service veteran, fire observation specialist, a man who described himself as not superstitious, on day 7 of a 14-day rotation at Station L7, a 60-foot tower on a ridge above Feather River Canyon, Plumas National Forest, Northern California. He'd found dead animals arranged in a circle around his tower base. He'd seen figures at the tree line. A man with pale gray eyes had come up the trail and told him, pleasantly, that the ceremony would happen on the 13th night. Joel had gone down to the drainage. He'd seen the camp, the altar, the post set in the ground, with rope wound around it. He'd come back up. He locked his door. He'd written it all down. And this is what he wrote after that. Days 8 through day 13. The journal was found on October 3rd, 1973, in a waterproof box on the floor of the cab. Joel Ardis was not with it. Journal, Rotation L7, Plumas National Forest, Part 2.
Day 8, Tuesday. Weather, clear. High of 61 degrees Fahrenheit. Humidity, 9%. Wind north at 6 knots. Red flag conditions by afternoon.
The radio is dead. It's not exactly right. Let me be clear, because precision is the only anchor I have left up here. The radio is not off. The power light comes on. The transmit light goes green when I key the handset. Channel 4 reads clean on the indicator. That's the Quincy dispatch frequency, the one I've been checking in on every morning of every rotation for the past 6 years without a single failure. Every light, every indicator, every function reading says the radio should be working, but it's just not working. What comes back when I try to key is static, but not clean static. Static has a texture to it that's recognizable, random, white, like rain on a tin roof. This is different. This has something underneath it, a layering, if you will. I've been trying to describe it to myself for 3 attempts now, and the closest I can get is, it sounds like someone breathing into the handset from very, very far away. The rhythm of it, in and out. I tried at 0600, I tried at 0700, and then 0800, every hour on the hour after that. At 1430, I set the handset down and tried again at 1500, and at 1500, I got a voice. It wasn't dispatch. It was, and I'm going to write this down plainly and let it sit there without further explanation. It was my own voice. A single word, clipped and thin through the static, there and then gone. I keyed back immediately, identified myself, gave my station number, asked for confirmation. The static came back. Nothing else. I sat for a long time with the handset in my lap, trying to decide if I'd heard what I actually heard. A man alone at altitude for 8 days with disrupted sleep and mounting stress will manufacture things in his mind. I know that. I've seen it happen to other observers. The Trinity Alps rotation 2 years ago, a man named Prescott who swore he'd heard children laughing in the timber for 4 nights straight and had to be walked out by a ranger. I'm aware of what solitude does to the instrument of a human mind. I heard my own voice on the radio. I'm putting it in the log because the log should be complete. It should be accurate, and that's just what I heard. At 1900, I keyed the handset one more time, out of stubbornness as much as anything, and got 6 seconds of clear carrier signal with nothing on it, and then the breathing static again. And underneath the breathing, very far away, came a sound that sounded almost rhythmic. It might have been chanting. I chose to turn it off rather than sit there and listen to it. I'll try again tomorrow. Ate my last can of peaches before dinner. Rationing begins now.
Day 9, Wednesday. Weather. High overcast. High of 57 degrees Fahrenheit. Wind southwest at 12. Smelling of rain that never came.
At 0130 this morning, someone was at the base of the tower. I heard him before I put eyes on him. A sound below that wasn't quite footsteps. It had a liquid quality to it, a sloshing rhythm that took me a moment to identify. I got up and I went to the window and I looked down. There was a man standing outside the north support leg with a red gasoline can in his hand, tilted, pouring. I could hear it hit the ground. I could smell it within 30 seconds, that sharp petroleum smell climbing the 60 feet to the catwalk window with a directness that made my throat close. I threw the window open. Hey, stop, hey. The man stopped pouring. He set the can down at his feet, the way you would set something down when you intended to come back to it. Then he looked up at me. In the dark, I couldn't make out his face. The moon was a thin thing behind the clouds, and the clearing threw back no light. But that posture of his, when he looked up, it was unhurried. He wasn't frightened. He wasn't caught red-handed. He looked up the way a man looks up at a bird on a wire, noting its presence, mildly interested, but not concerned. I said, "Hey, I can see you. You need to leave this area right now. This is a Forest Service observation station." He didn't move. I said, "You need to go. Now." He raised his free hand, slowly, and he put one finger against his lips. Shh. I couldn't see the smile. I don't know if it even was a smile. I don't even know how I know it was a smile. I know the way you know some things, below the level of sight, below rational mechanism, and the part of you that was an animal before it was anything else. But I knew he was smiling. He picked up the can. He walked back into the north timber, and the trees overtook him. I stood at the window for a long time after he was gone. I stood there until the smell coming off the ground below reached the point where I had to close the window against it. Then I put on my boots and took the hatchet and went down the ladder, which I know sounds crazy, but I needed to know what he had done and how much of it he'd done. The ground at the north support leg was soaked. The flashlight beam caught it wet and dark, the earth black with it, the dry September grass drinking it in for a radius of about 4 feet around the leg. I held my breath and crouched, and I put my hand near, not in it, but near, and I felt the fumes rise against my palm. He hadn't finished his job. I stood up and looked at the north tree line and then at the tower leg rising above me. And I thought about 60-foot wooden towers and dry September timber and 9% humidity and a man who'd stopped not because I'd scared him, but because he wasn't done yet. I thought about what done looks like. I thought about what done means when you're the fire watcher in the tower. The patrol radio lives in a weatherproof box at the base of the ladder. Emergency backup has been there every rotation. Standard equipment. I tried it at 0300. Green power light, active indicator, clean channel display. Nothing on the other end. The same breathing static as the main unit. I stood at the base of the tower in the cold with a useless handset and smelled gasoline and looked at the north tree line and keyed the handset one more time, knowing it wouldn't work, but doing it anyway because doing something was better than standing still with what I knew. I went back up. I sat in the center of the cab with the hatchet in my lap and I didn't sleep. I watched the door. I watched the windows. I went through the catalog of what I had and what I needed and what the options were for a man alone in a tower who has no radio and whose tower base has been soaked in an accelerant by a man who put his finger to his lips and smiled. The options weren't good, and it's hard to think that they'll get better. At 0415, the singing began. It came from the north first, where it always starts, and then it spread. East and south and west. The same encirclement as before. The voices positioning themselves in the timber at the 4 compass points, locking into rhythm together. 4 separate groups, 4 directions, 1 pulse, with me in the middle. But there was something new in it tonight. I've heard this chanting 5-6 times now, and I've gotten familiar with its structure the way you get familiar with a sound in your walls. You stop hearing it as a whole, and you start just hearing its parts. Tonight, I could hear that one of the voices in the northern group was lower than the rest, much lower. Below the register I'd expect from a human chest. A resonance almost. A note that I felt in my body, in the cab floor, and the railing of the cot, and in the fillings in my back teeth. And that low note was not doing what the other voices were doing. They were chanting in rhythm, syllables cycling, repetitive. The low note was holding one sustained note underneath everything else, continuous, like a foundation under a house. It didn't breathe. It didn't pause for breath. It held for the full duration of the chanting. One unbroken tone for what my watch tells me was 2 hours and 11 minutes, and a human being cannot sustain a vocal tone for 2 hours and 11 minutes. I know this. I'm still writing it down anyway. At 06:26, everything stopped. Voices, tone, all of it. Mid-phrase, the way they always stop. And the silence that replaced it had weight. An actual physical quality, like pressure behind the ears before a storm. I sat in it, and I didn't move for a long time. When I finally moved to the window, the clearing was empty, but at the timber edge on all four sides, at each compass point, there was a line of dark at the base of the trees. I got the binoculars. I looked at each one in turn. Ash. A line of ash at the tree line at each of the four positions, as if small fires had burned through the night at the edge of the timber. Cold fires. Ash only. No glow, no ember. They'd been burning down there, and I never saw the light.
Day 10, Thursday. Weather, rain, light and cold. High of 48 degrees Fahrenheit. Wind east at 14.
The radio gave me something today. I've been trying every hour. This morning at 0900, I keyed the handset and got 6 seconds of silence. Not static, but actual silence. The channel open and clear. And then the carrier broke up and the breathing came back, and underneath it, slowly, like a phrase surfacing through deep water.
Station L7, this is L7, do you copy?
My own voice. My own call sign. My own phrasing. I've given that call sign 100 times. I know exactly how I say it. The slight drop on the 7, the pause before do you copy. And what came through that radio was my voice, giving my call sign with my cadence. Not a recording, not a loop. A voice speaking into a microphone somewhere, giving my information, saying what I say. I keyed back. I said,
"Who is this? Identify yourself." "This is Joel Ardis at L7. Identify yourself."
Static. And then,
"Joel Ardis at L7.
My voice saying my name. With the same flat exhaustion that I hear in my own voice when I replay the morning check-ins in my head. The exhaustion of 8 days alone and not enough sleep and something wrong with everything around me. I put the handset down. I didn't touch the radio again until 1800, and at 1800 I tried once more and got only the breathing static. No voice, nothing. Whatever had been on that channel wasn't there anymore. I've been sitting with the question of what I'm prepared to believe. I spent 11 years as a ranger, and before that I grew up on a rice farm outside Sacramento, and I went to a Methodist church until I was 17, and I've spent my entire life in proximity to the physical world. The one that can be measured and mapped and recorded in duty logs. I believe in what I can see. I cannot explain the radio. I'm going to leave it in the log as an unexplained event and move on, because if I truly sit with it, then I'll stop being able to move forward, and I absolutely need to move forward right now. Here's what is practical. I am on day 10. Relief comes on day 14. I have food for 2 more days. The rain is giving me water off the catwalk rail, but not enough. My real water problem is coming. I think I've been overdoing it, drinking more than I should have. And the problem is, the drainage is a 1/4 mile north. That camp, it's in the drainage. The stream runs through the drainage 100 yards from the camp. I have to think about how I'm going to approach that. I'm going to wait 1 more day, see if the rain continues and gives me what I need. If it doesn't...
Day 11, Friday. Weather, clearing, but cold. High of 46 degrees Fahrenheit. Frost on the catwalk at dawn.
The rain stopped at midnight and hasn't come back. I have enough water for today. Tomorrow, I'll be rationing sips. The day after that, I'll be in a kind of trouble that makes bad decisions feel reasonable. I have to go to that stream. I've been putting it off. I've been sitting with that plan for most of the morning. This is basically what I have. I go before first light when the camp is most likely to be still, possibly still sleeping. I go the long way, east along the ridge, then down into the drainage from the east side, well clear of the camp's position. I solid snake it, all the way up to the main stream. That stream runs along the eastern drainage wall, and I can reach it without getting within 200 yards of the structure if I'm careful. Fill both containers, and then hurry my ass back up. I've done this calculation. The risk of going is real. but the risk of not going is mathematical. I'm going at 0400 tomorrow. I'm writing this now so it's in the log before I go, in case I don't come back to write after. I want to document one other thing that happened today because the log should be complete, and because whoever finds this, I want them to have the full picture. At 13:30, I was on the catwalk doing my OBS sweep when I looked north and I saw that there was a figure at the tree line in the far distance. I mean, that wasn't new. I've seen figures at the tree line all week, but this one was different because it was close. Not the 400 yards that they held on the early nights. Maybe 200 yards. Close enough that the binoculars resolved the figure into a person, a man, standing at the timber's edge in the afternoon light. Close enough that something about the shape of him stopped me. He was wearing a tan canvas field jacket. I have a tan canvas field jacket. He was the right height. I'm 6 feet, lean. I know what I look like in proportion to trees, and this figure, he was proportioned the same way. Dark hair, a little long, the way mine gets at the end of a rotation. I couldn't see his face. The binoculars couldn't get me there from 200 yards with the light behind him. He stood there for 8 minutes. I watched him for all 8, and then he walked back into the timber, easy and unhurried, the way a man walks back into his own yard. I'm going to write this as I saw it. That guy, he looks like me. It sounds crazy, right? I know the clinical term for it, otoscopy. And I know it's associated with sleep deprivation, high fever, temporal lobe disturbance. I've had maybe 10 hours of real sleep in the past 4 days. And I'm not even discounting that. It could be a real thing. I'm also not going to tell myself that I didn't see what I know that I saw. I'm going to the drainage at 0400. I'm going to get my water, and then I'm coming back.
Day 12, Saturday. Weather, clear. High of 44 degrees Fahrenheit. Wind absent. Stars, bright enough to cast shadow.
I went down. The sequence of this entire event matters, and I want whoever finds this to understand exactly what I did, what happened, and then what the result of it was. I left the tower at 0345. I went east along the ridge for half a mile before dropping into the timber, which put me well above and east of the drainage's main axis. The stars were exceptional that morning, that specific high-altitude clarity that makes the sky feel three-dimensional, like depths you could fall into, swim through. The tree line throwing faint blue-gray shadows across the frost. I navigated by them, like ancient times. No flashlight. I decided against the flashlight before I left. I didn't want to carry a moving point of light into terrain where people had been watching the tower from the timber for 11 days now. I wanted to be sneaky about this. I wanted to be smart. I moved slowly. I gave myself an hour to cover ground that, on a normal day, in normal circumstances, I could walk in 20 minutes. I placed each foot before I weighted it. I stopped every 30 steps and listened. I was terrified. The mountain at that hour is quieter than most people ever hear it, past the animals of the night and before the animals of the morning. A window of genuine stillness that you could feel, moving through it in the dark, like holding your breath. I reached the drainage rim at 0450. The east wall dropped steeply, 15-20 feet of loose soil and root tangle, and I came down on it in all fours, facing in, moving the way you move when you can't afford to slip. Steady and slow. I reached the stream bed. Cold, snow melt fed, maybe 8 inches deep and fast over flat rock. I filled both containers, quickly, and then capped them, tucked them against my body under the jacket for warmth. I started back up. That should have been the end of it. That was all I had planned. Fill the containers, get back to the tower, be inside before first light. Simple. Survivable. I don't know how to explain what made me stop at the drainage wall. I've been sitting here for 2 hours trying to find an honest way to just write it, and I keep arriving at the same inadequate answer. I stopped because I needed to know. 11 days of edges and suggestions and patterns I could feel but not really see. The animals, the figures, the sounds, the symbol, the gasoline, the voice on the radio. 11 days of the shape of something without the thing itself. Whatever was in that structure, whatever was being built toward the drainage through all of this, I needed to see it with my own eyes, or I was going to spend the rest of my life knowing there was something I'd been too afraid to look at. I stopped because I was more afraid of not knowing than I was of knowing. The structure was dark except for one thing, the light inside, steady and orange, coming through the canvas wall in a diffused glow that didn't flicker the way a torchlight does. Still, warm, sourceless from the outside, and from inside it came a sound I hadn't heard before in all these nights of listening. Not the group chanting, not the encircling singing, a single voice, the cadence of something spoken or recited, the same sound cycling through a pattern, the way a rosary cycles, one person, alone inside, saying the same thing over and over, in a way that stayed flat and even as machinery. The camp around the structure was quiet. I scanned it twice from the drainage wall. The cleared ground, the ceremonial area with its cold altar, the timbers beyond. No movement yet. No perimeter watchers I could identify. Whatever tonight was, it was a private rite, internal. Not the same configuration as the nights around the tower. 30 feet of open ground between me and the structure's east wall. I crossed it. The canvas panels that make the walls of the structure overlap at the seams rather than ceiling, which is pretty standard construction for this kind of field shelter. You don't need a seal in dry weather after all. The overlap sheds rain well enough. At the overlap seam on the east wall, there was a gap of maybe 2 inches, running the full height of the wall. It was a small vertical slit of access. I creeped up to it, slowly, and I pressed myself against the canvas, and I put my eye right up to the gap. The interior was longer than I registered from a distance. There was a low ceiling, the full length of the structure running east to west ahead of me, the far end lost in shadow. The light came from candles inside, thick ones, dark waxed, set in a ring on the earthen floor. 8 or 10 of them maybe. And around the candles, seated cross-legged on the ground, were the people that I'd been watching and trying to count for 11 days. They were all facing inward, toward the center of the ring, their heads bowed, mouths moving in that slow, cycling way that I'd heard from outside. Their eyes were closed. In the center of their ring of candles was the altar. I know I've said that word a few times in this journal, and I want you to know that I'm not exaggerating. This was an altar. It was a stone surface, roughly rectangular, raised about 3 feet from the ground on a frame of stacked flat rock. Old work. The kind of construction that has been added to and adjusted over many years. The stones fitted by hand and refit and fitted again until the thing sits solid on its own weight. The top surface was dark in a way that wasn't the color of the stone, but something else. On the altar was a man. He was laid out on his back, arms straight at his sides, palms down, in the position of someone at rest or possibly past rest. He was wearing a canvas field jacket, tan, the same make as mine, the same wear pattern at the cuffs, khaki pants, laced-up boots, White's loggers, the same boot I've worn on every backcountry rotation for 6 years. Dark hair, grown past the point of tidy, the length mine gets at the end of 14 days without a haircut. It didn't take me long to recognize that the man on the altar was built like me. The proportions, the height, the length of the limbs, the narrow hips, and the wide shoulders of someone who carries weight on their back for a living were the proportions I know from mirrors and photographs. The hands resting palm down on the stone were the hands I've been watching hold this pen for 11 days. There were some differences. I found them the way you find the wrong note in a familiar song, not immediately, not until you've heard it enough that you feel something is off. The hairline sat a little lower on the forehead. The jaw was a little heavier. There is no weathering around the eyes, none of the particular creasing that comes from 11 years of squinting into bright mountain sky. Younger, I kept thinking. 5 years? Maybe 10? A version of me from before the divorce and the Trinity Alps and the first dead man under the Jeffrey Pine. A version of me that hadn't become what I became yet. Above the ring of candles, touching nothing, suspended in the still air of the interior, was a ring of smoke, perfectly circular, the diameter of the candle ring matching it exactly, hovering at chest height above the altar. They caught the candlelight and turned slowly in a space that had no draft, no air movement that I could feel through the gap in the canvas. The smoke didn't rise, it didn't disperse. It rotated, like something that was completely separate from the laws of our physical world. I don't know how long I stood at that gap. My legs were stiffening from the cold and from the stillness, and I didn't move because I was afraid that if I moved, I would make a sound, and that would break the recitation, and the closed eyes would open, and I would lose the 2-inch gap between me and whatever this was that I was staring at. And it was about that moment, while studying the man, while studying the environment, everything that was happening, that I noticed the eyes open. Not gradually open. There's a certain way that people wake up from sleep, a slow resurfacing, the way a fish comes up from depth. This was not that. This was a switch thrown, both eyes, open, fully present, in the same instant, and they went directly to the gap in the canvas wall without searching, without sweeping the interior, without the half second of disorientation that any normal person waking in a dim room should have. Those eyes, they went straight to the gap, and they found me. The thing on the altar looked directly at me through 2 inches of darkness with my own eyes, and I felt the look the way you feel a hand on your shoulder from behind, the total physicality of it, the certainty of contact. And what I saw in those eyes was the worst part of the entire 11 days. Not threat, not hunger, not the blank malevolence of something that wants to harm you. Recognition. It looked at me the way you look at yourself in a mirror, with the specific and total familiarity, something that already knows everything about what it's seeing. I fell backward, terrified. My boot heel caught on the drainage floor and the ground came up, and I hit it on my back with both water containers still gripped in my hands, and that impact knocked the air out of me. And I lay there in the dark drainage floor for a second, or 2 seconds, or 5, looking up at the canvas wall of the structure and the cold sky above the drainage rim. Unable to move and unable to breathe, unable to do anything except exist in this complete and physical knowledge of what I had just seen. Then I was up. I don't know how the transition happened. One moment on my back, next moment moving. But I was moving. North along the drainage floor, fast, staying low, and went up it the way that I'd come down, except with no caution in it now, hands grabbing whatever they grabbed, feet finding purchase by luck or reflex. And I crested the rim and just kept going, into the timber, north, then east, then up toward the ridge, the slope punishing and steep, and I ran until my lungs refused to cooperate with what I was asking of them, and I bent forward on my hands and my knees, and the cold air tore in and out of me, and I listened to my own heartbeat in the forest around me, and about that point, I listened, and heard nothing following, but I kept going anyway. I didn't stop until I reached the ridge. I stood on the granite crest in the dark and looked west at the drainage below, at the faint glow of candlelight through canvas that was the only thing visible from this distance, and I looked at it for a long time. The glow didn't change, no sense of alarm, no movement around it. The recitation was probably still going on inside, the voices still cycling through whatever they cycle through. The smoke still rotating in the still air above the altar. I walked back to my tower. The water containers were still in my hands. I hadn't let go of them on the wall, or on the run, or on the climb to the ridge. My hands were locked around them, white-knuckled, shaking in a way that had nothing to do with the cold. I climbed the ladder, locked the door, sat down on the floor. I'm trying to write this down while my hands are still shaking because the alternative is to let some part of my mind start arguing with what I saw, and I'm not going to let that happen. I saw what I saw. I know what it'll look like, and that is the one thing I'm going to have to carry down this mountain when the rotation ends, if this rotation ever ends, if relief comes on day 14 the way it's supposed to come, if the mountain lets me leave the way I arrived, with my name and my face and 11 years of Forest Service, and the particular and specific certainty that I am one person and only one person, and there is no one on any altar wearing my clothes. I'm going to sit here until the shaking stops. My door's locked. My hatchet is in my lap. I don't know what that was. I know what it looked like.
Day 13, Sunday. Weather, clear, cold. Temperature at dawn, 31%, 31 degrees Fahrenheit. No wind, no sound.
The radio came on by itself at 0300. I was awake. I'm always awake now. And it startled me badly enough that I knocked the water container off the shelf beside the cot. The power light came on green and the channel indicator came on and the handset gave a burst of static and then cleared. Clear channel. The kind of clarity I haven't heard from this radio in 5 days. And then a voice. My voice. Not a fragment this time, not a clipped syllable surfacing from the static. It was full and clear, as if I were in the room, speaking into the handset directly, my voice with my cadence, and my particular flat vowels and the slight roughness I get in my throat when I've been breathing cold, dry air for too long. It said, garbled at first. Those are the right words, but they came out blurred, the syllables running together. And I leaned close to the speaker and made myself listen, and the phrase resolved slowly, the way a photograph resolves in a dark room, detail by detail, until it was perfectly clear.
I am the smoke that stays.
Then static. And then nothing. I keyed the handset. I said, "Say again. Say it again. Who is this?" The breathing came back. Just the breathing, in and out, patient, from a very long way away. I sat with the handset in my hands, and I thought about the version of myself on that altar. And I thought about the smoke ring above the candles, rotating, but not dispersing. I thought about the man with the gray eyes, telling me that what they do travels upward, and I thought about the smoke that stays. I tried to understand what I was in the middle of exactly, and I couldn't get there. And I could see the edges of the shape of it, but I couldn't see the actual thing itself. The 13th night is tonight. At 1400, I went out on the catwalk to do my OBS sweep. Habit, muscle memory, the job continuing itself even now. And the clearing below me was all wrong. The clearing looked like a clearing. Same ponderosa border, same frosted grass, same granite outcropping at the south end. But the quality of the light over it was different from the surrounding terrain. Flatter, somehow. Like the light that falls in photographs, two-dimensional. As if the space below the tower had been replaced by a very accurate image of itself. I stood on that catwalk for 20 minutes looking at the clearing. And then I went back inside. The sun is going down now. I can watch it from the west window, going down behind the ridge, the light going from gold to amber to that particular gray pink of mountain dusk. In an hour, it'll be full dark. I don't know what's going to happen tonight. So, if these are my final words, I want to let everybody in my life know how much I enjoyed being alive, how much I enjoyed being a forest ranger, how much I enjoyed doing patrols, canvassing the woods, spending time outdoors. I've led a long, good life. I hope this isn't the end of it, but if it is, then may I go down swinging. I have that hatchet. I have the radio, for whatever that's worth. I have this journal and the waterproof box I'm going to seal it in before the light goes. I'm going to write what I see tonight, for as long as I can see it, and write as long as I can. 0130. They're here. not at the tree line, in the clearing, all the way in. I'm going to write this as I'm watching it because I don't know how much time I have left, and I want to be able to record everything I see. I went to the window at 01:30 because the cold had shifted. A change in the air pressure in the cab, something sealed and kept suddenly altered, like a door opened in another room. I went to the window and I looked down immediately. Figures in the clearing, not one, not the 3 of the early nights, not the dozen that I counted in the drainage. They were dozens, more than I could count in a fast pass. They were standing in the cleared ground below the tower, arranged in rings outward from the base, facing inward, facing up, all of them facing the tower. They weren't moving. The night is cloudless, and the stars are at full force, and the clearing is full of people standing in concentrated circles in the dark, every face turned up towards this cab. No torches, no fire, no light source I can identify. But there is light on them, the same flat upwelling I saw from this window 2 nights ago. The cold white light coming up from the ground itself, lighting them from below. It makes their faces wrong. Any light from below makes faces wrong. These faces are very wrong. I went to the east window, same thing. The rings extend all the way to the tree line on the east side. West window, south. The rings are continuous. They go all the way around, shoulder to shoulder, from the tower base to the timber on every side. There's just too many people here. That's the thing I can keep pressing on. I've counted the camp at 30, maybe 35 at the outside. What's in my clearing right now is 3 times that. 5 times maybe. I can't see where they all came from. The search teams combed this drainage and found nothing, and that was just last week, and now there are 100 people standing in rings in my clearing at 1:30 in the morning, and the light is coming out of the ground, at the center of the innermost ring, directly below the tower. I can see the man with the pale gray eyes. I recognize him from the posture alone. That strange stillness, head level, hands easy at his sides, the quality of a man who has been in exactly this position, in this exact place, many times before. He had presence about him. You could feel it. I could also feel his gaze. He's looking up at me. I can feel him looking up at me from 60 feet below in the upwelling white light. I can't see his expression from this height, but somehow I know it. I've seen it twice up close. Calm, unhurried, patient. Something has arrived after a long preparation, and he is welcoming its arrival. Beside him, I can see, is the figure from the altar. The figure standing beside the gray-eyed man in the center of the innermost ring is wearing my clothes. It has my height and the particular build of my body, and the dark hair that I've been growing out for 13 days. It is standing with its hands loose at its side, and its weight balanced forward on its feet the way I stand when I'm watching something. It's standing like me the way something stands like another thing when it has been studying that thing for a very long time. The figures in the outer rings have started to sway. It's a slow, unified movement like seaweed in a current. All of them seem to be in the same rhythm. Their mouths are moving. I can see it from up here, the movement of mouths in the upwelling light, but I can't hear a sound yet. The gray-eyed man is still. The version of me is still. Both of them are looking up at this window. I'm going to keep writing down what I see for as long as I can write it. 01:48. King the radio. Full power. Channel 4.
Mayday, Mayday. This is Joel Ardis, Observer, Station L7, Plumas National Forest Fire Observation Network. I am at risk of harm. There's a large number of individuals on the premises, and I cannot leave my position. I need immediate assistance at Station L7 on the L7 ridge above Feather River Canyon. Mayday, Mayday. If anyone is receiving this transmission, please respond.
Static. The breathing static. The layered kind with something underneath. Trying again on channel 4, and on 3, and on 9, the emergency frequency.
Mayday, mayday, mayday. Joel Ardis, L7. Does anybody copy?
The mouth movement in the outer rings has become sound, low, collective, just at the threshold of audible from 60 feet up, and it's building. The gray-eyed man has not moved. The figure beside him, and I'm going to stop calling it the version of me. I'm going to call it the figure because I need some distance from it, because I need some distance from what I'm describing, and that is the only distance available to me right now. The figure beside him has not moved. The light from the ground is brighter than it was at 0130. Steady intensification. The rings are more visible now than they were. I can see faces in the outer rings, and I'm not going to describe the faces that I see. 0201. The singing has started. All of them, all at once. Every voice and every ring at the same instant. It's like the power got turned on, the way it always is, total and simultaneous. And the low note came in under it at the same moment, the way the bass note of an organ comes in under the melody. Not built up to, just present. There and then, more present, growing. The cab is vibrating. I can feel it. I mean this in a physical and literal sense. The floorboards under my boots, the table under my arm, the window glass in its frame, the metal cot frame against the wall. All of it is vibrating at a frequency that I feel in my skeleton, in the roots of the back of my teeth, and the base of my skull. The pen in my hand that I'm writing on this journal is vibrating. These letters are vibrating as I form them. The gray-eyed man has his head back now. He's looking up at the sky, not at the tower. His arms have come up and out. His palms are up. The gesture of a man receiving something that he's been waiting a long time to receive. The figure is still looking at this window, at this height, at the specific pane of glass which I'm standing. It has not looked away since 0130. For 31 minutes, since the moment I went to the window and found him here, it's been looking at this window. I keep keying the radio between sentences. Static. Breathing. Occasionally, underneath the breathing, something that might be the low note from outside, which means the radio is picking up what's happening in my clearing and routing it back to me as signal. And I don't know what to do with that except just write it down. 0209. The rings are moving. Slowly, the way a noose tightens when there's weight in it. Not a jerk, it's more of a gradual drawing down. The outer ring is contracting toward the inner ring. The inner ring is contracting toward the tower base. All of them are still swaying, still sounding, still facing up. The low note is rising in pitch. A slow climb, a quarter step at a time, and it's continuous, still without a pause for breath. And the vibration in the cab is changing frequency with it, which means the resonance in the wood and glass and metal of this structure is tracking the pitch of that sound. I don't know what that means mechanically. I don't know what it means in any other sense either. The nearest ring is 40 feet from the tower base.
Mayday, Joel Ardis, L7, Channel 4. Does anybody copy? Does anybody receive this? I need...
The figure has raised its right hand. Slowly, the same deliberateness as the gasoline man raising his hand before he put his finger to his lips. The arm came up and made a motion on his lips. Shh. 0219. The nearest ring is 20 feet from the tower base. I can see their faces from here with other binoculars. Upturned in the white ground light, mouths moving, eyes. Every face I can see, eyes closed. All of them moving and sounding and closing in, and their eyes are closed. Except the figure. Its eyes are open, both of them, still looking at this window. Radio, I have to try the radio again.
Mayday, Mayday. This is Joel Ardis at Station L7, Plumas National Forest. I am a Forest Service fire observer. I have been at this station for 13 days. Something is wrong here, and I can't explain it in a transmission, but I need somebody to hear this, and I need somebody to come to this location.
The note is higher. The vibration in this cab is high enough now that the lantern on the hook above the table is swinging. The water in the container on the shelf is moving in small, concentric rings. Rings. Everything is rings. 0223. The nearest figures are at the base of the tower. I can hear them directly below me now, not through glass, but through the floor. The chanting coming up through 60 feet of wooden tower leg, through the platform, through the floorboards, into the soles of my boots. And I can feel the words in my feet. I don't know what the words are, and I have never known what the words are.
Mayday, Joel Ardis, L7. I am the fire watcher in this tower. I need somebody to hear this.
I've been watching this mountain for 13 nights. I've documented everything I've seen. The journal is in the waterproof box on the floor if someone comes and I'm not here. That box is what there is. That box is the whole record. Take it, read it, believe it. My name is Joel Ardis, and I have been here for 13 days, and the note is very high now. And the floor hatch. I can hear the floor hatch. Not opening, not yet. The sound of weight on the underside of it. The sound of pressure applied from below to the 4x4 square of wood in the center of my floor. It's the sound of the latch being tested. The note is...
Mayday. Mayday.
The hatch.
Mayday, L7. Does anyone...
The journal ends here. The entry cuts off mid-sentence in the early hours of Monday morning, October 1st, 1973. The relief observer, Gerald Cross, arrived at Station L7 on the morning of October 3rd. He climbed the tower and found the cab unlocked. The waterproof box was on the floor. Joel Ardis' gear was present. His pack, his sleeping kit, his food, his water containers. Both water containers were full. His boots were at the base of the ladder. The hatchet was on the table. Gerald Cross noted one other thing in his statement to the Plumas County Sheriff's Department, a detail absent from every Forest Service document filed afterwards. The floor of the cab was clean. No symbol, no mark, no scratch, but in the center of the floor where the marks had been, the wood was a different color, lighter than the surrounding boards, new almost, like wood that had never been exposed to anything. Cross said the cab smelled like wood smoke, not campfire smoke, something underneath campfire smoke, something he couldn't name and didn't try to. The radio was tested by a service technician the following week. It was in perfect working order. The technician logged it as no fault found. There were no other reports of unauthorized groups in the Plumas National Forest in the fall of 1973. There were no incident reports, no citations, no contact records for any group in the Feather River Canyon drainage. The camp Joel described was not found. The drainage was searched twice and found empty. Joel Ardis' truck was in the turnaround at the end of the access road. His keys were in the ignition. Joel has not been found. The Forest Service decommissioned Station L7 in the spring of 1974. The official reason on record? Structural concerns. We have a source who worked in the Plumas district in the mid-70s. She told us that the tower wasn't taken down because of structural concerns. She told us that the crew that went up to dismantle it refused to finish the job and came back down the mountain on the same day. We asked her why. She said she didn't exactly know why. She said the crew foreman wouldn't talk about it afterwards, not even to her supervisor. She said the only thing the foreman ever said about that day was one thing. once and never again. She told us what he said. He said there was someone in that tower. And I think we're just going to let that sit there. This has been the Midnight Holler, broadcasting from 1976. Turn your radio up on the way home. See if you hear anything you recognize.
I told you part 2 was going to be a doozy. It leaves me with a lot of questions. Most importantly, is Joel still alive? I have to assume he isn't, and if that's the case, rest in peace, Joel. You fought a hard fight. Thank you for tuning in to the Midnight Holler, friends. Airing that story made the lights power up bright. I can no longer hear the things outside, and I think we should be fine for another day or so here at the station. Until I see you again, dear listener, lock those doors. Keep that radio tuned in, and don't forget about us who are down here, stuck in eternal darkness in the Midnight Holler. Good night.
He grabbed his coat and tool bag, left the front door swinging wide, walked the road past Miller's Crossing, where the creek runs black and dry. There was a tower in the timber, red eye blinking through the rain, and every flash of lightning looked a little like her face. The sign said WHAINT Radio, though no station should have stood, just a shack beneath the tower, breathing warm inside the woods. Jonah, Jonah, follow that red light down through the pines in the dead of night. Jonah, Jonah, tune that dial. Marianne's been calling for a little while. Don't let the dead air in. Don't let the dark get through. Jonah, Jonah, keep it on. The holler's got a hold on you. The calendar read 1976. The clock stayed 2:15. The microphone was waiting there, like it already knew. He heard her humming through the wall, soft as a funeral hymn. Then something scratched at Studio B and whispered, let me in. Jonah, Jonah, follow that red light down through the pines in the dead of night. Jonah, Jonah, tune that dial. Marianne's been calling for a little while. Don't let the dead air in. Don't let the dark get through. Jonah, Jonah, keep it on. The holler's got a hold on you. Jonah, Jonah, don't go by. The road behind is overgrown. Jonah, Jonah, sing it true. WHAINT Radio remembers you.